All right, here you are, part three. And I've got those three dots like we did in part two. If you didn't watch it, go back and watch it. And yours will look different than this. But what you're going to do is say from sunrise to sunset, right? So I'm going to say what you usually do is I'm going to actually draw it backwards. I'm going to start over here in the west. Let me switch to a smaller pen size and maybe even a different color just so that it's like easy to spot. Let's go to orange. What I'll do is start in the west here, and I'm going to go up to that. And if you do a bad job, just delete it like that. If you did a bad job, let's try it again. I'm going to start here in the west, and I'm going to go up to my purple dot, which again, you guys did a different one, like that. And then on the back of this, quote unquote, the back, because I know this is a two-dimensional thing, but remember we're trying to mimic this. On the back of this, what I'll do is with a dotted line, come back down to the far side, which is the east, where the sun actually rose. And there you go. To a reasonable degree of accuracy, you just took the line that was on this, and this one's got a little stick figure instead of a house, and the data points that were on this, and you made this three-dimensional thing into this two-dimensional thing. Not easy, but you did it. So what are some important ideas here? We made these models near the date, not on the date, but near the dates of the equinox. The sun rises in the east, and that varies a bit. It's always towards the east, but it's going to slide a little north sometimes and slide a little south sometimes for about half the year. We got to figure all that out with the seasons. The sun sets west, and again, due west on the equinox, but slides a little south, slides a little north throughout the course of the year. And the sun's path, and this is huge, 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 is tilted towards the south. Now you got to like step outside of your head for a minute and think about that. Here I am in my classroom. South is that way. I'll point. South is that way. The equator is that way. If you were at the equator, the sun would be going overhead to some degree. Maybe, again, a little south, a little north, depending on the season, but overhead. That's why it's hot there. The sun is beating down in the equatorial region between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. We, being up here way north of that, have to look to the south to see where the sun is, which is the reason why it's going to be tilted south. Now, on this one right here, I did it way too high deliberately because I didn't want you just to copy. I wanted you to use that globe. But you can see how it is tilted towards the south. It is tilted this way on yours. That's great. That's what we like to see. So, a typical regions question, and I'll blow this up a little bit, we'll have options like this. And you've got to, and look at, they're going to switch the north and south, so you can't just memorize. You've got to look and see the compass directions. You got to pay attention to what day they're asking about. You have to pay attention to where on Earth they're asking about. They can fairly ask, what is it like at the poles? What is it like where we live? What is it like at either the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, or the equator? Or they could ask about a similar latitude, like mid 40s, like we live, but in the southern hemisphere, or the South Pole. And then they can ask about those during spring, summer, winter, and fall. It is an enormous, terrifying amount of information to have to keep straight. It's hands down the hardest part of our science, but it is our job. We're not going to ignore it. So let's say the choice was just which one of these represents about our latitude, mid 40s in New York, at about this time of year, which is pretty close to the equinox. And when I say this time of year, when we did this plastic dome thing, which one do you think? What do we want to look for? We want it tilted towards the south. We want sunrise pretty close to east west. And we got that right here. So this one is like New York near the equinox. I'll type that. Near equinox. Which our days we're getting more and more into learning. September 21st and March 21st. What are other ones? See how this one like looks the same, but it's flopped over towards the north? This would be one that is like, and yes, I would like you to be writing this. This would be like South America, like a mid, anywhere in the like mid 40s. So if you go way down to South America, I don't know. We'd have to look. Let's look. Let's pause. Let's look. So yeah, so mid 40s for us, like right about here. What if we went mid 40s down there? So down to Argentina, or you could follow that around the planet. There's not a ton of places. South 30 looks like maybe the very end of South Africa, maybe not. But not a whole lot of land at our latitude. Down here, away south. Oh, there we go. New Zealand. Go to New Zealand. So in New Zealand, going or anywhere on the latitude that's similar to our latitude. That could be that in the southern hemisphere. So let's say that New Zealand, and again near the equinoxes, because I see it rising exactly east to exactly west. This is also rising exactly east to exactly west, but the sun goes directly overhead. Are we clever enough to start thinking about what that would mean? If the sun's going directly overhead, where must you be? This is also near an equinox, but this is near the equator. If you're overwhelmed by this, you're not alone. This is very tough stuff. What about this guy? This one's a little tricky. I would say that this one is like one of the tropics near the time of one of the solstices. How about for now we say that's a little bit too much for me, Mr. F. That's not something I'm ready to deal with right now. I feel you. All right. But that's the challenge, is that we do have to unravel all of these. And we're going to make little flashcards to try to solve them all. We'll see how you do. All right. What do you think? That should do it for, let me just zoom back out and make sure we're good. That should do it for all of part one. You now have a drawing of what that thing looked like, and we know that on a regions question it might look like this. Even though they're tilted in different directions, it's because the regions was mean to us and made south on that side and north on this side, whereas this diagram had south here and north here. Happens all the time. It'll be a thing. All right. Thanks for sticking with me. Part two is next.